visions collide. Welcome to Glam Chemist.
Welcome back to the Glam Chemist. Today's guest you might recognize from TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. In this episode, I speak to Melly, the science geek, a biochemist and forensic science professional who's built a powerful platform translating complex science information into engaging and accessible content. This was a really fun one to record. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome back to the Glam Chemist. I'm your host, Genesis Velasquez. I'm so excited to have this guest today. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hello, I am Melly the Science Geek, or Melly for short. I am a social media science communicator, and I've been doing this for about 3-4 years. I have a Bachelor's of Science in biochemistry from the University of Texas at Austin, alongside a certificate in forensic sciences. So what I do is I use that knowledge and those resources that I got from college to kind of spread all of this information on the internet that you probably didn't know about science. So I cover all of the cool science, like poisons and stuff like that, as well as a lot of the morbid science.
Yeah, no, your content is really interesting, and I love that you've been able to make it your own, and it's not just like the typical lecture hall kind of science explanation. It's very entertaining and it's very insightful. That's how I found you, was through your content, so I'm hoping that our listeners will check it out too.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, I try to make it as not boring as possible, because I have this philosophy basically that like anyone and everyone could be really into science. It's just a matter of like how they were taught. So if you were taught science like it's boring, then you're gonna think it's boring. But if you're taught about how science could be used in everyday life, it kind of becomes more applicable, and you kind of get more interested in how to utilize science to make your life easier.
That's really cool. And it's obviously, you can see it in your content. It's definitely entertaining, and it's like more niche applications to things that I would have never known, even as a scientist myself. So it's always nice to learn something new. When did you decide to start sharing your content and like decide to take this approach on social media?
So I have actually been a content creator since like 2020. It's been a weird
Oh, that's
6 years.
awesome.
I started out as a storytime creator during like in the beginning of COVID, and that accrued a lot of interest and virality. But then, as soon as I got into college back in mid 2021, I kind of wanted to veer away from that. I was, not really into my personality and me as a person being content. It just wasn't interesting to me. I wanted to keep my life private, as well as I just wanted to kind of do something that meant more than just being like, hey guys, I'm an influencer. So fast forward to 2022, that July, I decided, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to make a whole new channel on TikTok. And so I made this channel. I called it Sciencey Melly, I think, or something. And I went with it, and I started talking about like cool science stuff, like how, dolphins can get intoxicated by passing around a pufferfish type of thing. And I very quickly veered from that to me, mind you, I was still in the midst of college and everything, so in the midst of my classes. And I was taking a course for my forensic science certificate, actually. And I remember I was learning a lot of really cool stuff about forensics and criminology and things like that. And I started getting into, okay, well, a lot of shows depict like how, to get rid of a body, if like, if need be, how to get rid of a body. And so I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, this show wasn't right about that, and this show wasn't right about that. And so I'm starting to think about this, and they're like, oh my God, we can create a series called Is That a Good Way to Get Rid of a Body? And that's how I kind of started this whole thing. Like, that gained so much virality. And like everyone loved it, because they were like, oh my God, wait, what? Pigs, hydrofluoric acid, what do you mean? You can do all this? Like, it's crazy. So I started kind of debunking shows. And that's kind of how the science channel took off. And then what was that Is That a Good Way to Get Rid of a Body series turned into another series called Could That Kill Me? because I was like, okay, these are really close together. People are really into death for some reason. And so I started out the Could That Kill Me videos, and people just, it was like, if I thought, is that a good way to get rid of a body? If I thought that series was going crazy, Could That Kill Me went even crazier. So many people loved it. I still do some videos for that series, but it kind of like died a little bit because we have, turned to weirder science and also kind of more important science in a way. So kind of how I got started.
In the world of true crime, I think people really do want to know this kind of information. Like they're really into it.
I started to get a lot of writers that were actually like DMing me and being like, hey, if this happened, like if I mixed this chemical with this chemical, what kind of, like, it turned into a situation where now I kind of wonder how many books this like these facts kind of brought to life.
Yeah, you're going to need a copy of those since you were part of the research process.
The main thing is that I realized the power of the ability to read research papers, the ability to read these primary sources, to read these like NIH, Nature, Journal, all of these types of articles, all of these publications. Because at the end of the day, the importance of research is probably the most notable, yet like least looked into. A lot of people kind of disregard the importance of accurate research and the ability to accurately research something and to utilize those primary sources. And so not only during college did I realize that I was getting free access to a lot of these, because through institutions you get that free access. So not only did I realize like, oh, I have free access to these things that like the general public doesn't, but I also realized that in my search of kind of getting more into the educational accessibility sphere and everything, I started looking into it and I was like, people can't read this stuff. Like the literacy rates just alone, people can't read this. And so I started to realize the importance of being able to communicate these very hard to read resources and being able to tell people like, hey, this is what this means. This is what this is saying. Not to mention how ridiculous it is for even people in science to read publications. Having someone like a communicator, for instance, to navigate you as the general public through that maze is very necessary. And so I think at the end of the day, I kind of like looked at this and I was like, this is something that the world really needs right now, especially right now. If I'm not willing to do it, who else would be, type of thing. So I kind of started to, in the midst of making this like morbid / fun like series about these very innocuous things, I started to realize just how important it was for this information to come out. And so that's kind of how the transition went from like, oh, it's starting out as this like fun little channel to no, people need this education and they're not getting it and they don't know how to read it.
How do you decide what's worth communicating and worth sharing, like when you're looking at information and learning something new?
We don't have that great of an education system in America, especially surrounding science. And personally, I grew up with that. I grew up in a very small town where we didn't have a good amount of access to educational resources regarding STEM. And so, like small oil town type of situation. That's what I started with. Was I didn't know any science as a kid. I was very ill prepared for college, for at least the STEM side of college. And I don't really want someone to go through what I went through with that, where you get into college and you start your science journey and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you have no idea what to do and you end up dropping out because it's like, I wasn't prepared for this. I was disenfranchised by a system that I can't even control. And so in the beginning, that's what it was about, was teaching science, making sure people were prepared, and making sure it was fun. Because at the end of the day, science is fun. It's just a matter of how you were taught it. But now it's kind of turned into this is an extremely important piece of a huge movement that I can play into and that I can help with. And so it's made that transition, but there is still a piece of my content that does play into the I want people to have fun with this. I want people to realize they like science, even if they hated it before. And at the end of the day, I want people to kind of know that they're not dumb, that they aren't stupid. They just weren't taught properly, most likely.
So you talked a little bit about college and then knowing that you didn't really have those resources available to you. How did you fall into science in the first place?
So it was a weird journey. I actually originally wanted to go to college to be a music education major. And I actually wanted to be a band director. That was ultimately what I wanted to do. Got into this on-ramps geoscience course, and when I was in this on-ramps geoscience course, we started to learn about, everything under the sun regarding geology and geoscience. But the main one that I kind of started to hyperfixate on was this concept known as the Coriolis effect. We learned about the Coriolis effect. It's basically where, because the Earth is a sphere, and every point on that sphere from, the North Pole and South Pole all the way to the equator has to make a rotation in 24 hours. The velocities of those points are different, which means that whenever it is rotating, the currents, that being wind and surface currents for like the ocean and things like that, all of these fluid currents don't really move in the way you expect them to. Instead, they move in kind of circular patterns. So these patterns are called gyres. And we were learning about the Coriolis effect and how it plays into not only geology but history and trade routes and everything like that. And for some reason, I just started getting really into this one concept. Like, I was so into it for no reason at all. And then that turned into just an overall hyperfixation on this entire class. And so throughout the entire class, we started learning about water tables and, of course, more about the Coriolis effect, thermohaline circulation, all of this stuff. And then we started to veer very much into sustainability and sustainability science. And by that point in the class, that was mid-year, that's kind of when I really started to rethink my entire career path. I was like, no, I'm really into all of this. I started not using as much plastic. I had a metal straw that I took out of my keychain all the time. It turned me into a menace to society as a teenager, but a cool one. This whole class kind of changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I don't even know why. I don't know why I was so interested in this, but I was. And so that turned into me, applying for college. And when I applied for college, I originally actually applied to be an environmental science major. But I got rejected from the environmental science major at UT Austin. And so I had to go through that entire first year trying to figure out, if I don't want environmental science, what do I want? And that kind of turned me to biochemistry. Because I was like, biochemistry, it sounds cool. I like biology. I like chemistry. I like all of this stuff. And so, like a college student who doesn't know how college works yet does, I worked my butt off for a year as an undeclared major, and then I transitioned into biochemistry, and somehow I got in. How we went from, music education to somehow being an absolute geek in more ways than one.
It seems like we all started from a creative, artsy place and then somehow went completely analytical. I don't know how. What advice would you give young folks they're either undeclared or unsure and trying to figure out how to navigate the STEM field and navigate college even as a first gen?
What I needed to hear as someone who was in undergrad, especially early undergrad, you are constantly going to feel like the dumbest person in the room. Just play into that feeling. Just play into it. If you feel like the dumbest person in the room, that means that you are doing something right in most cases, as long as you keep trying, as long as you keep trying to learn, as long as you keep trying to get better in your field. Because at the end of the day, you're not the dumbest person in the room. You're just one of the dumb people in the room, quote unquote. That being
Yeah.
because all of us, like, science is built on not knowing. Science is built on not having a single clue what's going on and just asking questions. Just keep asking those questions.
It's literally our job is to continue to be inquisitive. You said in the form, like, the more you learn, the more stupid you feel. What do you mean by that, and how do you share that with our listeners?
So the Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological phenomenon in which people who don't have much competence are kind of incompetent enough to not realize how incompetent they are. So instead of being like, oh, I'm really dumb, usually people who are less competent or less educated um, are the most confident people in the room about their intelligence. They have no idea they're wrong. There is a flip side to that as a part of the Dunning-Kruger type graph. That's called the Valley of Despair. And this is where you have so much knowledge and you have gained so much education and you are so competent that you think you're the dumbest person in the room because you realize just how much with that education and with that knowledge that you don't know. And so it's kind of this really weird paradoxical thing where the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know anything. And it kind of it starts to really get at you, especially whenever you start to experience that in full force during undergrad. And so yeah, like the more you learn, the dumber you feel. You just kind of have to like push through that. But yeah, no, that's what that ultimately means. Is like the more you learn, the dumber you feel, because scientifically that's how you were meant to feel.
And then in undergrad, you have to kind of lean into that because that's the only way you're going to keep learning and advancing.
Honestly, out of everything in undergrad, one of the things that I definitely, as like an overachiever, valedictorian type, because that in high school that's what I was. I was the grade chasing, like, overachieving person. And then college, a really fun thing that college taught me, even though I did have to experience that feeling all the time, was okay, I'm not chasing a grade. I'm not chasing a GPA. I'm not doing any of that. I'm learning. I'm genuinely learning what I need in order to get a career in this. And whenever you focus on that learning and focus on, like, not as much the numbers system and the point system, and you're just focusing on the topic at hand, you start to kind of enjoy it in a way because you realize, oh my God, there is so much of the world that I did not know. And without this class or this concept, I would have no idea just how much I was missing out on.
That's a really great approach to think about it because I think a lot of us go into academia really looking at those numbers and putting a lot of pressure on that kind of information versus just this is the time that you're supposed to enjoy the most and this is the time that you're supposed to learn, make friends, make connections. You learn what you don't like, learn what you do like, be able
Yeah.
to kind of take that information now because those are the years where we're supposed to do that. It's definitely sad to look back and realize like I wasted those years trying to reach some accolades that don't even matter anymore. Like no one asks about them.
Kind of funny too, because how my content, I completely forgot to mention this. Part of how my content started was I was trying to learn. Whenever my content, science, like the science content, started going crazy, I had a broken foot. I couldn't go to campus. I couldn't do any of that. I was just stuck in my room with my genetics textbook. And so what I started to do was I was like, oh, I have this, this TikTok account where I talk about science. Why not use it to study? And one of the biggest things that I did was I like told myself, I was like, if you can teach this, you know what you're talking about. Like you've learned it adequately enough. And so that's what I did. I would go in my textbook, I would start reading through things, and then certain concepts that I really needed to learn for like an exam or something, I would set up my phone, take my textbook away, and be like, hey guys, did you know this? And like, I started teaching this concept that I had just learned in order to study, and that kind of worked. And that turned from a learning student to a science communicator out of nowhere, before I even knew what science communication was or that it was even a job to begin with.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's honestly, if you can apply that into for our young listeners, if you can apply that to yourself, just turn on your camera and teach yourself some information. It's actually a reinforcement of the stuff that you're learning. That's a new study tip. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about your new journey that you're going to be an author and you're starting to write a book. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Okay, so stick with me here because this is still an explanation that I am like working, because it's a weird type of book. So my book is ultimately an autobiographical style science book in which it moves chronologically from when I was in high school to me being out of college and graduated. And each chapter, while being in chronological order, also focuses or centers around a different science fact that I had learned at that time that helped me get through these periods in my life. Because during like my entire college career, I I kind of used science not only as a thing that I'm learning to get a degree and all of that, but I also used science a lot of time to get me through hard times, to kind of help me actualize and push through difficult parts of my life. And so there are chapters where we have a science fact that directly applies to the chapter, utilizing science in order to get you through life and in order to kind of show you how much science applies to life. Not to mention giving you a story of just how I got here, because everyone seems to want to know that.
When did you decide to start writing it?
Back during November of 2024, I was in my last year of college, and out of nowhere, I got an email from a publishing company. And they basically were like, hey, we're really interested in you from what we've seen on social media, all of that. And so I get on a meeting with them, and they basically tell me, we would love for you to write a book. Here's the contract, all of that. And I said, I need to graduate first. I was like, first and foremost, I need to graduate college. I need to get my degree. Like, this is the entire point of me being here. And so we agreed, and we decided to wait until I was graduated and had some time to relax and give myself a reprieve from all of the science courses and everything. And so I actually started writing in June, and I didn't get the first draft, or like the first manuscript, done until, I want to say, actually this last month. I think it was like January 3rd or something. I had submitted the entire thing, but it took a decent amount of time to like get all of the memories, all of the science concepts, and all of the publications that I had to kind of accrue in order to get all of these explanations in order. So it definitely took a decent amount of time, but no, I started writing in June of 2025. And then now we're in the one of the editing phases. So thankfully, we've gotten out of the manuscript phase, because when I tell you, writing a book from scratch is a lot.
That's amazing that your content creation has given you this opportunity to become a published author. Like, that's so exciting.
Yeah,
Did
I never
you
expected for this to turn into a whole book, but here we are.
I think it's really interesting how you've been able to use content creation to advance so many parts of your life.
I
Go ahead.
think that whenever I had started content creation, it was just out of boredom. It was just out of like this small, I need someone to talk to and there was no one here kind of thing. And so, yeah, I agree. Like, for it to turn into not only the book, but going to really cool places like Boston and Washington, and being flown out to meet other science communicators and kind of be shown that, yes, science communication is, for one, a thing, but two, a very important thing. I think that's the best part of this job is that you get to look around and you get to be flown to these places, but it's not only the trips, it's the fact that you get to just see how important what you're doing is. And I also get that from like my comments and my DMs every day. I get a lot of people that like I'm the reason that they are going into biology, or I'm the reason, like it's crazy. And so yes, I have a lot of opportunities from this job and everything, but the most amazing thing is that I get to hear people tell me that like what I'm talking to them about does matter and that it has changed their life. And that's all I could ask for, honestly.
What advice would you give young creators or folks who are considering science communications when it comes to building out their platform or growing?
First and foremost, the biggest one, because there are two here. The biggest one is if you simply find something interesting enough to share it, just share it. Just, I don't care who gives you a bad comment or who gives you a good comment. Like, the reaction doesn't matter as much as the fact that you have just shown a great amount of information over something very important, whether you think it's truly important or not. Because with education, that fact that you just shared on social media could be the reason that someone actually got into science and found their future career path. Like the simple fact, even just giving a fact of like, oh my God, did you know that this is how DNA works? That could change someone's life. So if you are hyperfixated enough over a topic enough to want to talk about it on camera, just talk about it. Just set up the camera. And then the second thing, whenever you get more into it, and there is a lot of hate, especially right now with the amount of censorship and bots and just overall conflict, let yourself kind of take a moment to not witness those comments. Like I said before, the human brain is not meant to handle this amount of pressure, this amount of feedback, especially negative feedback. And it's especially not meant to handle it consistently. So yes, while I say post the thing, I'm also saying take a break. Don't look at the comments as much as you want to in the beginning, especially. Like if someone DMs you with constructive criticism, that's one thing, but constantly getting comments over and over again, at the end of the day, you're gonna feel tired and it's going to make you want to quit. And if that is the career path that you want to go through, just don't look at.
But it's cool that you've made it a job. Like now this is what you do to supplement your life, which is fun. It's a fun way to do it.
Especially in a time where lab jobs are very few and far between. I definitely know. I actually, after graduating, I remember I was searching for jobs. I was like, no, I'm not going to do the science communication thing as like my main gig, all of that, because I didn't think it was going to go crazy or far or anything. And so I was searching through science jobs, and at this point, it's like mid 2025. We have gone through the mass amounts of funding cuts and like layoffs and everything. And I remember getting from four of the lab tech positions that I had applied for, I remember getting mass emails to all applicants basically saying, oh, our funding got cut. This position is no longer available. And so all of us just got told like, no, never mind, position is closed. And it was kind of hard. It was definitely hard to witness in real time, like everything that you had worked for really to, get into a career in was kind of just being dismantled before your very eyes. And so to have this as a job and to have it get as big as it did was, for one, very unexpected, but definitely kind of a blessing in disguise in a way. Just because I'm like, if I can't use my degree that I worked so hard for and my love for science to work in a lab, at least I can tell the mass public what I learned, type of thing. So I'm super, super happy that this is what this turned into. And I just hope that I can use this position to make as much change as possible, especially in the current time.
That's one way to use your degree for sure. Thank God you have the opportunity to do it. Well, this has been really, really interesting. And I'm so glad that I had you on the podcast because I've been watching your content for a while. And I think people need to know like a little bit of the person behind the camera. And I think we've learned a lot about you and your interests and now your new projects. I do have one question I ask all of my guests. It's a little bit deeper, but I think it takes us somewhere fun. What would you tell your younger self, given what you know now about your career?
I think I would remind her that she's not as powerless as she felt about certain things. And I think I would remind her that there is more power in her voice than she knows and that she's been told. Especially as someone who did feel like she was silenced a lot or couldn't talk a lot just because, I was weird. um, but I do think I would kind of remind that younger self that there is a lot of power and a lot of change that her voice could promote. And so I think that's a good little empowering
That's a
message
really
for
good
a 10-year
one.
old self. Like,
Yeah, and you don't know where it'll take you, all those years of being silenced, and now you have so many people listening to you and wanting to hear from you versus the way you might have felt in the past. That's a really, really good one. Is like finding your voice and being able to use it.
yeah, and to every like listener on here as well, like there is so much power in your voice, in my voice, in everyone's voice, and at the end of the day, they just need to use it.
Just turn on the camera, guys. Just go for
Turn on
it.
the camera.
This is awesome. That's a perfect place to end it. I really appreciate you joining me, and I'm so excited for our listeners to hear more about you. And then you got to keep us posted on the status of the book so that we can all get
Yes,
involved.
yes, and also the status of um, a certain rally that I'm helping with organizing in DC. So March 7th, Stand Up for Science will be hosting their second big DC rally. If you cannot make it, you can also organize one in your own town. So just I will keep you guys posted for that because I want everyone to make it and everyone to make their voice heard.
So tell us a little bit about where we can find you, where everyone can find your content and reach out to you.
Yeah, so I am at Melly the Science Geek, all one word, on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. If you guys want to find me on those places. Oh, and Facebook, which is a weird one. I always forget that one. If you want to chat, DM me. Bring up a science fact or two. I might use them in my videos.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I
Thank
really
you so much
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
I'm proud to announce that you can find the Glam Chemist podcast on any platform that shares podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Lemonade. Be sure to follow our content so that you know who our new guests might be every week. Also use that platform to ask any questions or suggest anyone that you would like to participate in the podcast. This entire platform is for you. We will work together to build this community, and my goal is to share all the information you might need. So feel free to ask. I'll do my best to speak to those folks so that we can all share in the conversation. New episodes will be released every Wednesday. You'll hear some familiar voices and find some new ones. The Glam Chemist podcast is a Hija de Lolita's production. The episode's jingle was created by Producer AI. Recording and editing is done by your host, Genesis Velasquez.